So welcome to the first of the Enlighten podcast. You might well ask what the Enlighten podcast is, but it goes along with the Enlighten Thinking Festival here at Lichfield Cathedral. And it really is a chance for us to have good conversations, robust disagreement, all held within a sense of respectful conversation and dialogue. So in this particular first episode, we're really just going to introduce what Enlighten is, say a little bit about where it came from, what it's trying to do, and how you might yourselves come to be part of it. So I'm Gregory. I'm one of the canons here at the cathedral. That's just one of the priests that work at the cathedral. And really my area of specialism is in learning and engagement. And it's been a long desire of mine to try and do something that reinvigorates the Enlightenment ideals that were really the place and time in which Lichfield thrived. At a time of so much disagreement, at a time when our world and our nation is fragmented and divided, we need to find places where we can have proper discussions. That's what I'm about. My whole ministry, my whole career, if you want to call it that, has been about those conversations to bring people closer to God in a sense, but also to bring God closer to people, and where people disagree or don't want to have any time for God, still to have good and robust conversations.
Hello, I'm Thomas and I'm part of the marketing team here at the Cathedral, and every now and then I have some interesting things to think about. So I'm here to discuss Enlighten with Gregory.
So we might want to say a little bit about who's coming, and we've sort of kept it within fairly strict boundaries. So it is, there's a little bit of history. We've got Diarmaid MacCulloch coming and Sarah Ogilvy, both experts, both professors in fact of history from Oxford University, one specialising in the Reformation, although Diarmaid's going to be talking particularly about Little Lower Than the Angels, his book on the history of sexuality in the church. Sarah Ogilvy, who is a professor and is connected with the Oxford English Dictionary, will be talking about words, about the dictionary, central of course to Lichfield, where the great Dr. Johnson, the man who first compiled an English dictionary, lived and worked.
I think for me particularly, I'm looking forward to hearing the sex and Christianity talk. I think there's definitely a very much being a young person, being active on social media, both as part of my job role and outside of it. I think it would be interesting to hear about the historicity of Christianity and sexuality. I think there's definitely a lot on social media now, particularly in the kind of self-improvement space. There's a lot of this idea of muscular Christianity, which is this kind of concept of how do you apply Christianity to improve oneself, and that's been around for quite a long time. But there's definitely there's like a female counterpart to that now. I remember having a discussion with someone the other day about that, and a lot of stuff about how if you are a kind of true Christian, you will wait until marriage. And it's interesting seeing that having a resurgence in one of the other speakers we've got, they're talking about the eclipse of Christianity and perhaps how it's not reaching young people. But actually I do think there is a little bit of a counter-culture, particularly in American influences. I've not seen as much over here on the other side of the pond. But I think that'll be interesting to hear about, given that context.
Yeah, and I think what we'll find in quite a lot of the talks, and we'll definitely find it in what Diarmaid says, is the range of opinions within the Christian story in terms of sexuality is more complicated than simply the way in which social media or the way in which the divisions that are often dominating society will suggest that they are. And actually there is always a range of opinion, and really what Diarmaid's book is talking about, what his work talks about, is that has always been a tension within Christianity. And I think what you're talking about is really interesting in terms of the influences, because I think for young people, because of the power of social media and the power of influencers, there is a tendency to force us into quite sharp and distinguished categories. And I'm hoping that people like Diarmaid, Rupert Shortt, when he talks about the eclipse of Christianity and why it matters, will be making really clear that actually it's just more complicated. There are more shades of grey. I mean, I like what you've done in the marketing department in terms of the stuff around Enlighten, because it is shades of grey, because the world is not necessarily black and white. It is shades of grey.
So who else have we got coming?
So I've mentioned Sarah Ogilvy. We also have in the morning Alec Ryrie, who's a professor at Durham, a historian, and he'll be talking about the age of Hitler and the way in which our understanding of morality is often decided in contradistinction to Hitler. So we always think about the world, what's the worst possible thing you could be, or the worst way you could act? Well, it's the way that Hitler acted, and the Nazism that was founded upon some of his ideas and his charisma, his negative charisma. And I think what Ryrie is saying is actually. Is that the most helpful way of making our moral distinctions? To use that person as a sort of a way marker, or as a guide to what is not right or what is not proper. And then in the evening, really controversially, we have Jeremy Hunt, who is going to be interviewed by Nick Higham. Nick Higham is also famous. Nick Higham was a BBC journalist who used to Meet the Author on the BBC News, and as now an author in his own right and a fantastic interviewer. And he'll be talking to Jeremy Hunt, who's been writing about whether Britain can be great again. And it's interesting that of all the people, Jeremy Hunt, we've invited to come and talk, to be interviewed. There'll be questions and answers, as there will be after all the talks. But we've already had quite a bit of kickback, and people saying they're going to boycott it because we've got a Tory coming. And the whole point of this festival is that we shouldn't be boycotting, we should be engaging with each other. We fall really easily, almost all the time, into left, right breakdowns, red or blue, depending what nation you're in. That means left or right. We move into a world where we say liberalism is wrong, or conservatism is right, or conservatism is wrong and liberalism is right. One of the things that I've always been brought up on is an idea that actually comes from a theological background through John Henry Newman, now actually a saint in the Roman Catholic Church, and then through a man called Alec Vidler, who talks about the difference between liberalism and liberality, to have a sort of openness of mind. So I couldn't be more keen to spread an idea of liberality, which is that you and I, Thomas, can disagree on something and still be agreeable to each other. And I guess that's what we're trying to do, be able to disagree and yet be able to, say, share a table, to share a drink. Because in the end, difference can actually make the world a better place. Division can never make the world a better place. So I think what we're trying to do in Enlighten is actually encapsulate the power of difference and try and emasculate the power of division, if that makes sense. So it's like, increase the power of difference, decrease the power of division. If we could do that, that would be brilliant. And also just hopefully entertain people's minds, nourish people's minds. This is the first one we've done, and it's a work in progress. Hopefully we will build on it each year, and it will become something of a movement as opposed to just a series of events, a genuine festival of thinking.
I think it'll be, for me, having worked on the visual identity of Enlighten and creating that promotional video, I think it'll be very interesting seeing how my interpretation of Enlighten was when I was creating that video versus how it actually will be. I'll be interested to see how that's aligned, because I think for that I went very avant-garde, and how can I make this draw intrigue. I think that was the ultimate thing, because if you look at the social media stats, it didn't actually do that much engagement, but the amount of conversion that people went from looking at the video to actually looking at the website and reading more tells a completely different story. So I think it really did what it needed to.
And I like that, because essentially that's what we're trying to do. So what you've looked at and envisaged in that way of marketing and in the aesthetic is what we're trying to do, which is just dip your toe in. So if you're a bit interested in coming to Enlighten, come to one talk, and if you don't like it, interrogate yourself. Why didn't you like it? Come to another one. Come to more. Come and see what it's like. And we're going to do some feedback afterwards. We want to have feedback from people to see what went well, what didn't go well, because as I said, we want it to be something that is not simply a series of events, but a time of encounter.
I'm trying to remember now. Who else do we have coming?
So on Sunday, actually, we've got a really interesting day too. So we've got obviously the services, which are, again, you're very welcome to come to. They're always open to everyone. And actually, we've got a service that's broadcast on Radio 4 in the morning, which is their Sunday morning worship. And that has as its theme, believe it or not, the Council of Nicaea. Now, the Council of Nicaea was the first time really the whole church worldwide came together in the 4th century to talk about really what is Christianity and how do we cohere together as a community. It was a discussion. It was a robust discussion. There was disagreement, quite robust disagreement. And what came out of it was something positive. It was the gift of the church. But it wasn't without argument. It wasn't without disagreement. Good can come through disagreement. And that's, by pure coincidence, the theme of that morning worship. And so that will be broadcast in the morning on Radio 4. 10:30, we have a preacher, Angus Ritchie, who is the executive director of something called the Contextual Centre for Theology. Angus is a priest and an academic who has spent the whole of his ministry in East London working in community organising, which was what Barack Obama did in Chicago. It's how Barack Obama got into politics. Well, he was part of the movement, Angus, that brought it to Britain. And that movement has achieved a huge number of things, not least around citizens of sanctuary, but also around introducing the Living Wage Foundation to Britain. And I worked with Angus some years ago in Oxford when that was being rolled out. So he is a real example of somebody who is a thinker, he is a writer, and he's a doer. So actually, when he comes to talk to us, it won't be in the form of question answer, it'll be in a sermon, but there'll be a chance, I'm sure, to talk to him afterwards. But he will surely provoke thought. He might even provoke a little bit of controversy, who knows? But what he will be doing is making us think. And what's inspiring, I think, about Angus is he doesn't just think and write, he does. And again, there is something about the Enlighten project that is helping us to encounter each other, have those robust conversations, and then be changed by them. So, it really is a work in progress. It's something quite exciting, quite new. But like anything that's exciting and new, as you said, you don't know necessarily quite how it's going to work out on the day. I know full well that we have good speakers that will all be worth hearing, and hopefully there'll be some conversations worth having.
Definitely. I think it would be, for me, I'll be attending the whole weekend. It'll be particularly interesting for me as an atheist to be attending the service. I've been to a couple here at the cathedral for work. It's been an interesting experience. I think it's very... Again, I think it goes back to this thing about the eclipse of Christianity, which I think will be so interesting, again, from the perspective of a young person, is the whole thing around mindfulness and digital detoxing. It's the other side of the coin of, hyper-addictive social media. I think it will be interesting to experience that again, because it did very much feel like I'd done meditation for quite a while because that was kind of the thing. And it's a very similar sort of thing, but it is remarkably different. It's a different space, and I kept missing the pages, but it was still a fascinating experience. And I would say to anyone who's watching this or listening to this that is an atheist, I would encourage you to actually come along if you do have the time. I think it's a unique experience. I don't think you'll be discriminated against in any way, shape or form. I was made very welcome there when I went.
Hugely welcome. And I think just to sort of add a kind of point of challenge, not about atheism, but in general, is that actually what's extraordinary is that really, arguably, I'm not a historian, but if you read quite a few historians, you can trace a root of the development of free thought from Christianity. I mean, you look at Parliament. Parliament is the shape of a church because it originally began in a church. A lot of what we take for granted in terms of free speech has its origins in the history of Christianity. Arguably, philosophy and science has its roots in Christianity. So if you are an atheist and you're a free thinker, challenge yourself to come and see where the roots of that might have come from. And I'm not saying that to convert people. I'm saying that to say, actually, just as I need to be challenged by people who have atheist convictions to think really about why I believe what I believe, so those who have atheist convictions need to think about why they believe what they believe. It's all about essentially the growth of character. And I guess that's at the heart of the virtues of Enlightened. It's about actually, who are we? Who are we in our hearts? What are we about? And not just who are we as individuals, but who are we as a community? how do we talk to each other in community? How does an atheist talk to a Christian? How does somebody who is fiercely conservative speak to somebody who's fiercely liberal? Well, the point is, as long as you keep talking, there's a conversation. It's when the conversation ends that violence so often takes its place. And that's a bit grandiose because, you know, we're in Lichfield. There is not a huge amount of violence. There is discord. There are culture wars, definitely. But let's just get that conversation going, the conversation of difference, rather than the silence of division.
I think it's interesting having it in a place like Lichfield, which can feel very small, I think, especially as a community.
But it is quite small. I mean, it is quite small.
Yeah, it is. The 9th smallest city in the UK is a fun fact for you.
That is a good bit of knowledge.
It's a good bit of pub quiz knowledge.
Yeah.
I think of all the places you would think for something like this to come, Lichfield would not be the place for it. But I think that it's very good then for us to have it.
But would you have thought that happened in the 18th and 19th century? Those names, the names that have come from Lichfield in the past: David Garrick, Erasmus Darwin, Samuel Johnson, Ashmole. These are extraordinary people to have come from such a small place. Something extraordinary happened there. There was a sort of great furnace of ideas. Wouldn't it be great in our own time, and perhaps in a rather more modest way, to just reignite that furnace of ideas, that furnace of conversation, where again, they always had robust disagreements, but they had them in the context of intelligent conversation. That's what we want, intelligent conversation. That's all we want.
Definitely. What are the topics that we got covering this weekend?
So I think we've covered most of them. I mean, so what we've got is a little bit of history, a little bit of politics, some pure Christianity, and across all of them really is the sense of the common good. Every one of them is about the common good. Because whether it be sexuality or how we use language, or why Christianity might be important for atheists and Christians alike in terms of our culture and our civilization. What it means to be a populist in an inclusive sense, if you're going to listen to Angus. All those things, they're all about the common good. So I think that's what's uniting this as a festival. That's the sort of boundaries that keep us in there. But within those boundaries, there's quite a breadth. And I hope that next year, when we come back, hopefully same time, same place at the end of September, well, not quite the same time, a year on, we'll have more. And we'll have more to offer, greater things, perhaps even a little bit more controversy. We're always open to hear ideas. If you have people you think would want to come, if you have topics that you'd like us to talk about, just be in touch. The whole point about this is to try and excite some enthusiasm for those robust conversations, the common good, and the ability to just, as I said, foster that difference without division.
Absolutely, and I think as we continue, obviously in the lead up to Enlighten in the next few weeks, we'll definitely be looking after the festival to expand this podcast further. It'd be interesting to get a range of different guests covering a range of different topics. I mean, I know something for me, I'd personally really like to hear about more on something like this is AI and how that relates to religion.
Yep.
I think I work with AI a lot in my role. I have very mixed feelings about it. It'd be very interesting to have a discussion on here, maybe even next year at the next Enlighten. I think definitely a lot of stuff about, I mean, who knows where the state at which AI will be this time next year.
Perhaps we could just not even have you, Thomas, but have AI.
Yeah.
I would hope not, because
I'm losing my job already.
Exactly. No. But I agree with you. I think that's exactly the sort of thing we will be talking about, stuff that affects the common good. We haven't got any science and technology this year, so I think that's a good prompt for next year.
Definitely.
And that's the sort of stuff. If you've got ideas, come to see what we offer this year. In a way, it's a bit of a taster this year. Next year, as I said, we will probably have a slightly fuller weekend. But just come and have that taste to start off with. Yeah, that's what we say. Come and taste Enlighten. Yeah.
I think we've covered all our bases there.
I think we've covered all our bases. I think it's. I've come out of talking about it excited. I was already excited before, but I just think the idea of growing it, the idea of what we could cover is huge. I agree with you. I hope this podcast will continue, and hopefully we'll have some guests. Maybe some of those who come to Enlighten will agree to come on afterwards. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Thomas.
No, thank you for having me.
Speak to you soon.
Yes. And thank you very much for listening or watching or however you're consuming this content. And we'd like to see you back here very soon. We will be keeping everybody updated on our social media channels about when we're planning to do the next episode and what it's going to look like going forwards. So please do stay tuned. Please do come to Enlighten on the weekend. It's going to be a lot of interesting topics as we've discussed today. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing you there on the day behind the lens of my camera.
Thank you very much for listening, being
Thank you.
part of it.